Read this book almost a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't review it because I was, away for a little bit, different reasons, which probably this book helped me a lot for those reasons. Family issue, family things that were going on. I read this book right after Yoga of Jesus, so it was a great transition into modern, essentially, inner journey. And this is written by Sadhguru, aka also his name is Yogi Vasudev, more of a modern guru, I would say, I would say he's out in a lot on podcasts and all that stuff too. So I've listened to him a lot, practiced his Isha yoga technique, which is a 90-day regimen or 45 days regimen, just depending on how you do it. But his book was much more in depth than many of the talks I heard. Although it's the same thing, many of his conversations, if you piece together all of his conversations, probably convey the same thing, but not as in depth as this book does, and plus the practices. I think the gold in this book is the practices he gives, right? Short practices, different kinds of practices for everything from the food to what you eat to how you enjoy the food to the love, the body, joy, everything. Bottom line, this book is not just one dimensional. I would say multi-dimensional because he goes into, for example, about food and the body, our digestive system, how it's built, which one other book went through. It was by Sri Yukteswar. Book kind of goes into detail. You could call it science, or you don't want to call it science. It could be spiritual, but I think it's science. Basically, they go into detail. Both of them, even Sadhguru goes into detail how our teeth to the digestive system are built for certain kind of food and certain kind of fasting. All right, he prescribes 18 hours. For those who know, Sadhguru only eats once a day. I kind of practice almost once a day. Not really, 4 hours eating period, essentially. So I kind of have a couple of meals, I guess, within the 4 hour period, more like a salad and a full meal. So I guess that counts as 2 meals, right? Plus a juice. So I guess, yeah, altogether maybe three, whatever. But anyway, the main thing about this book is how you can engineer yourself to joy. That's what inner engineering is. Various practices, principles, explanation, without going into too much into any religion, right? Also, many funny anecdotes, right? Sadhguru always has jokes, funny jokes, especially, one character always shows up, Shankaran Pillai, you know, essentially always the guy he cracks jokes on, essentially, obviously fictional character. But anyway, I would highly, highly recommend reading this book, even if you've heard him before. Not that there are things sometimes I don't completely agree with Sadhguru on things, some science stuff, right? He goes sometimes on tangent, I think, way too off on a tangent, but most on the spirituality, spot on, because everything he kind of shares is more in a simpler form, very simple form for people to understand, instead of overcomplicating things like some people tend to do or some gurus tend to do. He puts it more in a simple form for everybody to understand. So in that way, it's a great read, great practices, simple practices, without having to go into his programs. Even if you practice what he's saying, I think will work, because some of the stuff I do, not exactly the way he's saying there, but I have practiced it and I know it works. From what he's saying about inner engineering, how you feel joy within, goes into love, eating, everything, right? Anyway, highly recommend Inner Engineering book. Maybe read it multiple times or kind of going over things, because even when I'm listening again, there are many things I missed, seems like, while reading it, although I got it. But it's like, any other book I've read, you have to read multiple times any effective book to truly digest it and truly get it. But the main thing is you have to experience it. That's the number one thing I've learned from all the spiritual books is you can read, try to understand, listen, but if you don't practice and experience those things that they're trying to teach, it's knowledge. Knowledge is useless without practice, practicality, without experiencing things, truly going in depth into yourself. All this reading doesn't matter. So highly recommend, first of all, reading it, but practicing things in there if you truly want to engineer yourself from inside.